Hello, everybody. All right, welcome to the Mikestand. Today, of course, is Tuesday, November the 11th, 2025. Happy Veterans Day to those who served our country. We appreciate your service here at the Mikestand. So we're gonna give people a chance to come in before we get started. Um, let's see. A friendly reminder to everybody, of course, if you guys haven't already, you guys can help out by liking and sharing the stream so can get some more friendly people to engage. That'd be appreciated. Also, if anything here grabs your attention, feel free to comment and or ask questions, and I will try to answer the questions to the best of my ability. With that being said, let's see, we have at least one other person here already, so guess maybe I will get kind of started right away here. So, we're going to go over a couple of articles tonight, both from Bounding into Comics. Um, First one talking about so apparently Gundam sales boom thanks to Gundam or GQX overtakes Dragon Ball and One Piece is Bandai Namco best-selling IP, and then also Scott Snyder says DC KO Warner Brothers crossovers meant to show comic books have something for everybody. So we got a couple again. One article regards to anime, the other one in regards to other article in regards to um, comic books. So, and then of course we'll also take a look back at last night's Monday Night Raw, look ahead to tonight's NXT, and then wrap things up with this day in each history. So, with that being said, let's go ahead and let's get started here. Pull up the articles here. And again, a friendly reminder, of course, if you guys haven't already, if you guys can help out by liking, sharing the stream, see if we can get some more friendly people to engage. That'd be appreciated. Also, if anything here grabs your attention, feel free to comment and or ask questions, and I will try to answer the questions to the best of my ability. So let's get into this. Gundam sales boom thanks to GQ in small quotes here, GQ overtakes Dragon Ball and One Piece as Bandai Namco's best-selling IP. Article by Spencer McCooley, published yesterday. So let's get into this article. Let's see now. Let's see. All right. It seems that the worries over younger audiences' lack of interest in mecha anime were thankfully unfounded. Bandai Namco has confirmed that the genre revolutionizing Mobile Suit Gundam series is not only alive and well, but outright living to the point of overtaking both Dragon Ball and One Piece as the company's best selling IP. All right. For those of you who don't know, IP, of course, is intellectual property. Right there, as we continue on here. Per the company's latest earnings report, as released on November 7th, so November 7th, that would have been last Friday, in fact, and covering their performance from April through September 2025. Said period saw the Mobile Suit Gundam brand generate a total of 127.2 billion yen, Japanese yen. That's the equivalent of 824 million US dollars. In overall sales. Parsed out, Bandai Namco sales numbers show that roughly 49.3 billion yen, basically $319.2 million, of that came from the franchise's toy and hobby products, including video games. Gunpla model kits and the newly released Gundam card game TCG, trading card game, and the rest from various channels like licensing fees and royalties. Well, like Gundam is still as strong as ever, despite the supposed, I guess, lack of interest in it or growing lack of interest in it. But then Gundam, Mobile Suit Gundam has always been one of the top brands that, particularly of its genre, the mecha genre, just because the storytelling is pretty great too. Notably, this total is nearly double that of last year, when in the same time frame the franchise pulled in a still respectable 76.5 billion, according to this, dollars, or the equivalent of $500 million. So, all right, I think that's supposed to be yen. Actually, 76.5 billion yen. They just put the dollar sign in there instead, at the equivalent of $500 million. And far from just a narrow first place finish, the Mecha series totals were almost double those of its two closest competitors, One Piece, which came in second with 48.2 billion yen, the equivalent of $312.2 million, toy and hobby sales, 69.5 billion yen, $450.2 million total. And Dragon Ball, which placed third with 13.6 billion yen, the equivalent of $421.5 million, toy and hobby sales, 65.1 billion yen, $421.5 million total. Yeah, something's a little screwy with. I think they may have misprinted one of those numbers, because I think either 13.6 billion yen is the equivalent of 421.5 million, or 65.1 billion is the equivalent of 420. I think somebody either fell asleep at the wheel or something. Yeah, maybe they meant to say something else there, obviously. But anyways, as we continue on here. So explosive was Mobile Suit Gundam's recent sales success that Bandai Namco's board of directors has since increased its countrywide net sales projections for the entire 2026 fiscal year from 1.2 trillion yen, equivalent of $7.7 billion, to 1.25 trillion, $1.25 trillion yen, the equivalent of $9 billion. As to the reason behind the popularity boom, the company specifically attributed it to their ability to synergize. Quote, the buzz created from the latest video work, Mobile Suit Gundam, G-Quirks, and Gundam Next Future Pavilion exhibition at the Expo 2025 Osaka, Kansai, and the Gundam series related products and services, unquote. As noted above, this news should come as welcome relief to the many anime fans and creators who feared that Mobile Suit Gundam was falling out of favor with the general public especially G Cook's director Kazuya, who openly expressed such concerns during an August interview with Yahoo Japan. Quote, when I was a child, motorcycles and cars were objects of admiration. In that vein, I think there was the idea of, in smaller quote, palatable robots, unsmaller quote, which served as tools that could allow one to surpass adults as if leaping straight into adulthood. However, I think the current younger generation doesn't need that. Hmm. Well, I think in some regards, I think there's a couple of, I think I think the point he's making may have some merit just for a couple reasons. Now, I don't know if this is exactly the same over in Japan as it is here in the States, but of course, let me see what. I think first off, of course, we're further in the future, so our thoughts of what the future would be and what technologies would advance are changed from compared to when Gundam first came out back in 1979. But also, well, at least here in the States, we have this thing where it's almost like we're infantilizing our population. You got more and more cases where you know the younger generation is you know it's taking longer and longer for them to try to get out, to even make the attempt to get out on their own, um, to become an adult, even though from a legal standpoint they're an adult at 18. We've heard of things like with the Obamacare thing where you know offspring can stay on their parents' um, health insurance until they're like 26. You have other situations where you don't like. There are some of us who are like in my age group who we did have part-time jobs. Some of us did have part-time jobs, whether it was a paper route or working after school at the local diner or McDonald's or what have you. Now you don't see that as much anymore. Everybody's just staying home and getting they're on their phones and on their computers all day. Granted, I know I shouldn't talk because I'm on my computer on all day as well, but I think you guys get what I mean for the most part. It's not necessarily a good thing for a kid to not get out of the house and do things. So they call it progressive, but I think it's anything. I think if anything, it's more regressive than progressive. With that being said, of course, so finishing off and again, feel free to comment and or ask questions if anything here grabs your attention. By the way, that being said, quote, even in today's manga and anime, the protagonists wield superpowers that surpass adults more intuitively through magic or psychic abilities. Now, granted, too, in Japan, of course, in many of the animes in Japan, it's always the teenagers who are always seem to be the protagonists of most stories, right? Most stories you hear of are usually anyone between the ages of 13 and 18. I can give several examples. Luffy from One Piece is like 17 during during the prime of his run of the show. You go to Naruto, and all of them are like in their teens. Um, in the first series, the just where it's just Naruto, they're all like the main protagonists are all like 12, 13 years old, and then of course they're about 15, 16 in Shippuden. So and Bleach, of course, Ichigo is like 17. And a lot of these mecha ones too. A lot of these kids are anywhere between, as I said, 13 and 18. I think, like, for example, in Full Metal Panic, Sosuke is like about, I think he's about 15 or 16 in that. So let me see. All right, so in games, you can freely control characters on the screen using a controller. Maybe that's enough for them. Quote, I wonder if they even understand what it means to in small quotes, pilot a robot. Yeah, I don't think any of them has had the experience Shinji from Neon Genesis Evangelion, where somebody's basically told him, get in the damn robot. Right? The generation that once aspired to motorcycles and cars, still barely active, but in another 10 years, the Gundam series might not survive. Now, Gundam, as I said, came out back in 1979, so that was like 46 years ago. So many of the people who would have initially, well, some of us would watch the original Gundam, years later, and they've had a number of different spin-offs as well. So that's also take into consideration. While creating the Evangelion, in brackets here, rebuild series, I once again felt the need to update the meaning of robots, unquote. And that's the end of that article. So now now of course we'll get ready to move on to the next article here in a moment. So that was the first one. Now here's the next article we're going to look at here. And again, if you haven't already, you guys can help out by liking and sharing the stream. See if we can get some more friendly people to engage. That'd be appreciated. Also, if anything here grabs your attention, feel free to comment and or ask questions. I'll try to answer the questions the best of my ability. So with all that being said, let's get into this next article here. So, Scott Snyder says in smaller bracket here, DCKO, Warner Brothers crossovers, meant to show comic books have, quote unquote, something for everybody. Article by Spencer McCooley, published earlier today. You have, of course, from left to right there, Wonder Woman, Superman, and Batman. All right, so according to DCKO scribe Scott Snyder, while the addition of various Warner Brothers characters like Homelander or Annabelle to the event's roster of fighters certainly came out of left field, their appearance is meant to showcase the off-the-wall adventures and overall fun the comic book medium can offer any and all audiences. All right, is this? I don't know. Is DCK? This supposed to be a game or is it a comic series or what? But I guess we'll find out soon enough here. As revealed during this year's New York Comic Con, while the tournament to harness the universe's Omega energy in defense against Darkseid is only properly open to a who's who of DC heroes and villains, a special quote unquote bonus issue will see a number of, in small quotes, exhibition matches between such combatants and a number of third party WB owned Characters including Sub-Zero from Mortal Kombat, Annabelle from The Conjuring, Homelander from The Boys, Vampirella, Red Sonja, and unbearably sinister Samantha from Beneath the Trees Where Nobody Sees. Hmm. A curious choice to be sure, and one that feels more than a bit cynical given that Warner Brothers is in fact DC's parent company. Snyder offered his insights into these crossovers, in parentheses here, or at least his execution of them, parentheses, during a recent appearance on CBR's Hero's Journey interview podcast. Pressed by host and CBR deputy editor Sean O'Connell as to his creative process in determining the tournament's matchups, Snyder detailed, quote, then a lot of them are still secret because even though you've seen see the main pairings in the fight month, things happen within those issues, and things happen like even within issue 3 that I'm writing now, where I think it's okay to say that are like tag teams, unquote. Quote, so they can bring back characters that have fallen to be part of their team. So there's all kinds of crazy stuff coming that you don't expect, where it gives us second opportunities to have characters have big moments and characters you don't expect coming into the series that make you go, quote, wait, what the what? Unswallow quote. We really wanted it to feel like a Saturday morning cartoon on steroids. Oh, that's a nice analogy. Unquote there. Quote, because ultimately, two things. One, with events like this, like I learned with Dark Knight's Metal, you kind of have to have three things. In brackets, the first is, bracketed, unbracketed, a story that we feel strongly about on a very personal level, that feels resonant and feels like it makes a good statement about, in brackets here, the lead character, unquote. Quote, secondly, in brackets, I have to ask myself, unbracketed, does the event kind of stand for who we are at this moment at DC Comics, and have our priorities? Like with Metal, we wanted to show like Kirby-esque fun at a moment when it felt like things were going grim. With this one, we want to show that we're a company where we're inviting everybody in to the store to have fun. Trade guesses on who's going to win. Yeah, well, that's an interesting way to try to get engagement, get involvement, right? Bing, bing! Bing, bing, bing! Kind of reminds me of Ricochet Rabbit right there. That little panel. Bing, bing, bing! Ricochet Rabbit! So, quote, here's some free brackets. Here's, if you want a giant issue where Joker fights Annabelle and Vampirella is fighting this, and Homelander is fighting Superman, you have that. If you just want the main story, you have that. If you want to see Red Hood get his revenge on Joker for death in the family, you have that. There's all this fun stuff, and what it's about ultimately is it's a celebration of how fun and inspiring and how crazy comics is, but also how unifying and inclusive, and how there's something for everybody. That's what we want this event to feel like. And we want retailers in particular to feel like we're inviting people into their stores to enjoy, unquote. Quote, the third thing is utility. Um, that we want to do an event like this if it has something on the other side that makes the line better and as functionality beyond just being like making money for us in one quarter. And so with this, it definitely does, unquote. More than a moneymaker, huh? All right. At present, the specific WB crossover in the smaller bonus issue has yet to receive an official title or release date. Meanwhile, the second issue of the overall DCKO event is due out on November 26th. So that would be 2 weeks from tomorrow. So something to look forward to if you're into you just read there. All right, so let's see now. Let's see where we're at on time. We're coming up. We're at 28 minutes here. So yeah. So I think I will move on to the wrestling wrap up here. Getting ready to move on with that, as it were. And there was some stuff that went down, of course, on Monday Night Raw last night as they're building towards as they're building towards as they're building towards War Games Survivor Series on both the men and women's side. And I think it was announced that they are getting close to finalizing the teams, as it were, in that. But let's go ahead and move on to the wrestling wrap up and start talking about what happened on last night's Raw, as well as looking ahead to tonight's NXT. All right, so on last night's Monday Night Raw, came in the TD Garden in Boston, Massachusetts. This is also going to be John Cena's last appearance on Raw, apparently, as he's set to finally fully retire after next month's match at Saturday Night's Main Event. But this was his last appearance, last wrestling match on Raw. So You had Wade Barrett and Joe Testatori on commentary there. So in the opening match of the evening, John Cena became a Grand Slam champion, defeating Dominic Mysterio to win the one title that eluded John Cena, throughout his entire career, Intercontinental Championship. So John Cena is now a Grand Slam champion, having defeated Dominic Mysterio for the Intercontinental title. In the tournament, in the first round of the tournament, to see who will face John Cena at next month's Saturday night's main event, you had two first round matches last night. As in the first of the two matches, Rusev defeated Damian Priest. In the second one, Sheamus defeated Shinsuke Nakamura. So Sheamus and Rusev advanced in the tournament to see who will face John Cena next month at Saturday night's main event. Then in between the two tournament matches, you had the women's world title match occur between Stephanie Bakir and Raquel Rodriguez. Raquel Rodriguez got a title shot. Roxanne Perez was in Raquel's corner for that match, and Nikki Bella was in Stephanie Bakir's corner. Stephanie Bakir, of course, retained the women's world title against Raquel Rodriguez, only for Nikki Bella to turn heel and lay out Stephanie Bakir, basically setting her sight on the women's world championship. And in the main event, saw in the second of two title changes. You had three title matches, but two title changes on the night, as the Kabuki Warriors, Asuka and Kairi Sane, defeated Alexa Bliss and Charlotte Flair to become the new women's world tag team titles, the new women's tag team champions. And in the aftermath of this match, saw the return, of course, of Rhea Ripley. It also saw what looks like the possible finalization of the women's War Games match coming up at Survivor Series on the 29th, in which on the one side you'll have on the heel side you'll have the newly crowned women's tag team champions, the Kabuki Warriors, Kairi Sane and Asuka, teaming with a newly formed team on SmackDown, Lash Legend and Nia Jax. And it's rumored that the fifth person to join the team will possibly be Women's Intercontinental Champion Becky Lynch. On the face side, you'll see the former champs Alexa Bliss and Charlotte Flair teaming with Rhea Ripley and Io Sky, and Rhea Ripley making her return. I'm wearing a mask over her face to protect her broken nose, and it's also rumored that AJ Lee may be coming back as part of that matchup. And on the men's side, it looks like the Team Vision looks like they're taking shape. It looks like it will be, Team Vision will be Logan Paul, the Braun Breaker and Bronson Reed, Brock Lesnar, and I think the fifth person they were saying at this point would possibly be Austin Theory. And then on Team Punk, you have, of course, WWE World Champion CM Punk, with Jey Uso. Let's see. Cody Rhodes the WWE Undisputed Champion, Roman Reigns and John Cena. So now some people are saying that, well, if Cena does get added to this, that would mean he'd probably be adding a match, because I think he's down to his last match or something. But then his final, I think he's again, Cena's only got 2 or 3 appearances left between now and his final appearance, for counting his final appearance at an main event. So might have one more match here he can do as part of the plan. So, but with that being said, if it shows out, thanks for dropping in. If you can help out by liking and sharing the stream, that'd be appreciated. Also, if anything here we talk about grabs your attention, feel free to comment and or ask questions. We'll try to answer the questions to the best of our ability. So, with that being said, let me talk about now what's coming up on tonight's NXT. As tonight's NXT, which of course will be coming from the Performance Center in, I believe, it's Orlando, Florida. I'll have to double check that. I don't know if it's Orlando or Jacksonville. Say in a moment here. So I do that. Orlando, Florida. So NXT will be on coming from the WWE Performance Center in Orlando, Florida. Matches signed for the evening include Josh Briggs taking on Tavian Heights in a singles match, opening up in a semifinal match to determine the new Women's Speed Championship, as of course Sol Ruka was forced to relinquish that belt due to becoming injured. Fallon Henley, Fatal Influence, with JC Jane and Lainey Reed in our corner, will be taking on Skylar Ray. Then the men's speed title will be on the line as El Grande Americano will be defending against NXT's Jasper Troy. And then in the last man standing match, the NXT title, Ricky Saints will be defending the title against former NXT and TNA World Champion Trick Williams. So that's all we got for the wrestling wrap-up here. So now what we're going to do, we're of course going to move on to this day in each history. So today is of course Tuesday, November the 11th, 2025. So let's take a look back at this date in each history. So I'm in 2010. All right. So first up, we're going to head back 70 years ago today. And on this date, 70 years ago today, back in 1955, on this date in 1955, oops, I hit the wrong one there. Hold on. That we're going to later. Let me try this again. Okay, so 70 years ago today, on this date, 70 years ago today, back in 1955, the Tom and Jerry short film Pecos Pest from MGM's cartoon studio premiered on this date in theaters back on this date back 70 years ago. This was the last Tom and Jerry cartoon will be produced in the Academy format ratio. All following shorts would be produced in Cinescope format. So on this day, 70 years ago today, MGM cartoon, the MGM Tom and Jerry cartoon Pecos Pest was released on this date 70 years ago. It was the last short that was in the Academy format ratio, and after that one, they would start utilizing the Cinescope format. All right, now moving ahead, 45 years from that point. So we move ahead to the year 2000, which is, of course, 25 years ago today. On this date, 25 years ago today, XPW, Extreme Pro Wrestling, which was kind of the West Coast version of ECW, what didn't gain as much popularity, but a few of the former ECW guys did go there and wrestle there. So on this date, 25 years ago today, XPW would hold its Dismembered in November event at the Metal Fest Open Air in San Bernardino, California on this date 70 years. The main event saw Sabu retain the XPW World Heavyweight title, the three-way dance over Big Dick Dudley and John Kronos. I guess for some fans, the sad fact is that all three of these individuals are no longer with us. They've also, Sabu being the most recent one to pass this past year. So that was the main event. Then in a match in the XPW King of the Death Match's title, the Messiah would defeat his longtime rival Supreme, become the new King of the Death Matches. In a three-way dance, Tool would defeat Homeless Jimmy and Johnny Webb. Let's see. And then the opening match of the evening saw Kid Chaos defeat Juventud Guerrera. So that happened. So 25 years ago, XPW's Dismembered in November took place. Now moving ahead to the year 2010, which was 15 years ago today. On this date in the year 2010, 15 years ago today. Toei Animation's OVA special Dragon Ball Z Plan to Eradicate the Super Saiyans was released on this date 15 years ago. So on this date back in the year 2010, 15 years ago today, Toei Animation's OVA Dragon Ball Z Plan to Eradicate the Super Saiyans was released on this date 15 years ago. And finally, as soon as I clear this out, of course, finally, on this date in the year 2015, so 10 years ago today, in the year 2015, today in the year 2015, the fifth and final issue of 8 House from Image Comics went on sale on this date back in 2015. Sold for $2.99 with 28 pages. The fifth and final issue of Image's 8 House went on sale on this date 10 years ago. All right, so with that being said, I thank everybody for being here tonight. I hope everybody enjoyed the show. Of course, we'll be back here with more Niche News tomorrow. A couple articles I'm looking at to go over tomorrow from Bounding into Comics as well. Also, we'll get everybody caught up on what happened on tonight's NXT. Look ahead to tomorrow night's Blood and Guts Dynamite. As well as maybe look a little bit ahead to see. Well, probably won't have any information until Thursday on that. But with that, I thank everybody for being here. And of course, this Sunday I'll be joined by Rex Christian from Double Flyer Momentum, as we'll be looking at comics that went on sale in July 1940. I think we'll be focusing in on comics that went on sale from Dell. I'll have to double check. That. But with that, I thank everybody for being here tonight, and I hope to see everybody back here tomorrow. Bye.